So if I wanted to tell somebody, yeah. I didn't want to. I want to see if they can like go to the front. Joyce took a mistake. Well, I did, and he was, well, what happens if we do this? Well, we got common person last name. Yeah, so, alright, so where can I get the link? Maybe you have it somewhere where you can get, or I can show you the My mom thinks she's a libertarian.
Is propaganda acceptable? Is propaganda acceptable? Maybe.
Oh, that's the flame. I never got to see it.
They just did it.
I know. That's very good.
Thank you. Yeah.
What I really did is kind of poorly placed. Yes, that's my guy.
To where?
No, I mean, is it like a bunch of people you know? Or, right. No, it's just me and my brother, and then we used to like take that a lot.
Actually, it's post-tax too, because we did have to do we did 25 in post-tax. So I can't, my buddy started it, I left my team and then is it am I in there? Like the grab I'm like it's even wilder.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the great debate. I'm sure there's going to be people cycling in, so let them have your seat if you can. Tonight, our debate is going to be about libertarianism. Specifically, tonight's proposition is that libertarian economic policies and philosophy allow for an adequate social safety net. That's going to be the debate tonight, so we're going to go back and forth real quick. This is the pro side right over here. That was really well coordinated for libertarians. I know you usually like to run at the beat of your own. So over to my left right here, we have Jim Seneft. He's a corporate communications director. He's a professional. He took the jump from the GOP, which he had served for a very long time, in 2012, with the current presidential candidate, Gary Johnson. That's Jim Seneft right there. Give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. I want to point out, before we go too far, that these people volunteered their time. They're not getting compensated other than in beer, which is the only compensation I've ever known for doing these things. Next up, we have Roy Minette, running for Auditor General to replace Mr. Di Pasquale. I have a little bit of a blurb here. Philosophically, Mr. Minette has been a strong libertarian since he was 16, worked for liberty and as an idealistic young person before there was a Libertarian Party. Now he continues to fight that fight primarily for his children and grandchildren. He serves on both the state and national Libertarian Party platform committees and is a former member of the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania Board of Directors, and also chaired the marketing and the media relations committees of the LPPA. He is the candidate, as I said, for the Auditor General. Give it up for Mr. Roy Minette. Up next, we have Mr. Sean House, who is running for the 41st District, correct? 41st House, oh, what is it? The 16th House District, excuse me. 16th House District for the U.S. Congress in the race with Hartman, House, and Smucker. He is also the owner and CEO of Lancaster Trading House, as well as Hemsel's Pretzels. We can all agree, with no debate, that Hemsel's Pretzels are awesome. So I think we can all agree about that. No matter how contentious this debate gets, Hemsel's Pretzels rock. So eat those if you can. Here we have the anti-side, right over here to my right. We have Mary Aukers-Enders. She is a doula and childbirth educator, and she does have a philosophy degree from the wonderful university LVC. Right there, yes. We like philosophy up here, so give it up for Mary Aukers-Enders. In the middle we have writer, social activist, and musician Rafael Diaz right here in the middle. So give it up for Mr. Diaz. And this was his own verbiage. This is Mr. Travis Anderson, who is a Lancaster County, Assistant District Attorney, as well as a self-proclaimed man of reason right over here. That's Mr. Travis Anderson. I like that. I think everybody, apparently I probably shouldn't have advertised that this would be simulcast on YouTube, because I feel like everybody said, I'm already in my underwear, I'm going to stay home and just watch this on YouTube. So hello everybody in YouTube land. Give a little wave over to the people in YouTube land. We'll know how many people were watching on YouTube after the debate. Thank you, Silas, for setting this all up. This took like an hour to get ready, hour and a half to get ready, so this is no small thing. We've got 3 cameras. We're going to see you sweat. up here on the debate stage. Also, before I get started, doing this for free of charge, not getting anything for it, are our panel of judges this evening. They are going to be deciding the debate this evening based on the merits of the argument, not their predispositions, not their existing ideas about this, but on the merits of the arguments going back and forth. I'd like to introduce the judges running for the 96th district here in Lancaster City against Mr. Mike Sterling. This is Rob Bigley. He is a doctorate in music, as well as the executive director of the Trust here in downtown Lancaster, and the best bow tie wearing politician since one Rick Gray, I think, actually. Took a page from Mr. Gray on that one. In the middle we have Dr. Kelly Banna from Millersville University. She's a psychology professor, and this is not self-proclaimed, this is colleague-proclaimed expert at statistics, which I think is necessary for any of these types of debates because we all know how statistics can be skewed. She is going to keep things straight to make sure that nobody is using statistics in a problematic way. Is that right, Dr. Kelly Banna right there? And last but not least, the chair of the Millersville Philosophy Department, as well as my mentor and former debate judge, actually, for this year's. One time he judged a debate. This is Dr. Chuck Ward over here. Dr. Chuck Ward, give it up for Dr. Chuck Ward. Fairest person I know. I want to give you a little idea about how this debate works that makes it a little bit different from other debates. It's sort of Oxford style, but not completely. Each team will get a 3-minute introduction back and forth, 5 minutes to rebut each other, 4 minutes for a second rebuttal, and keep questions in mind because after a little bit of time, I will get to ask questions first, then the judges, then the audience. We'll go out to the audience and you can ask questions of all of these people. That's the first thing that makes it different. Number two that makes it different, each team can call point of order on the other team if they feel, one, that the debate has grown irrelevant. So our proposition is about libertarian economic policies and how they provide or don't provide a social safety net, adequate social safety net. In that case, if either team feels like the other team has gone off topic, they can call point of order and say that the current level of the debate is irrelevant to that point. The other thing they can do, because we like to keep these rational and factual and on point, is if they feel like either team has gone ad hominem, in other words, they started attacking people rather than using facts and argument, they can call that as well. But the thing that I think needs to be in every debate that people do, normally we have a separate fact checker for this, but our fact checkers are indisposed this evening, both with illness and family issues. So tonight I am your not as lovely fact checker for the evening. What the team can do, and since we have people under 11 years old, we'll use a euphemism, they can call BS on the other team. And what that means is each team has 3 BS calls that they can level at the other side. In other words, if they feel that the other team has made a factual error, like they've stated a fact that is not true, the team can call BS on the other team immediately. So you're going to do it while the debate's going on. So if Raphael or if Jim says something that they think that is BS, they say, I'm calling BS. We stop the timer for a second. They explain what their actual problem with that claim is, and then I will go and fact check it to the best of my abilities. I'm not a pro like Michelle and Penny, but I feel like I have done enough Facebook BS checking to make up for my lack of professional success. I have submitted 1 article to Snopes.com, which I think counts as something. Thank you. 1 article to Snopes.com. And, I mean, that pretty much makes me an expert, right? Anyway, I think the BS figure is the thing that we really need for debates, because I feel like that would be awesome if presidential debates, there's someone there going raising flags every time one of the main candidates says something that's factually inaccurate, instead of just being a mouthpiece or a campaign event for themselves. So that's the rules of the game. I'm going to give you time between rounds if you want to go grab a beer real quick or something like that, but we'll be out of here probably around 9:30 or so at the latest, starting at 7:30 here. So without further ado, I think I've explained the rules. Does anybody have any questions about how this goes? Explain the rules, explain the people. As is typical with most debates, the pro side is going to go first. So that our pro side, the libertarian policies allow for an adequate social safety net. We're going to wait till I sit down so that I can start the timer. So wait till I say go before you go. The microphone, we're going to make sure to test the microphone before you start speaking. If you can't hear them, raise your hand real quick and let me know, and I'll make sure that you can hear them from there. So which one of you is giving the opening statement? Roy? Okay. Roy, if you want to go ahead and talk in that mic real quick, just to make sure that we have a general level for you.
Matt, before you start the timer, I feel it would be appropriate to read the exact proposition that
Yes, please.
proposition is resolved that libertarian economic policies provide for the possibility of an adequate social net. Safety net, social safety net, sorry. Okay, our argument is...
Okay, wait, give me 1 second. Can you hear him? Okay, did you hear that? Okay. All right, in the back? Good? Okay. You may start now. Your 3 minutes begin now.
Libertarian positions on all issues are logically and consistently derived from the non-aggression principle. That is, the use of force on an individual is justified only if that individual initiated the use of force or fraud. Government is nothing but a monopoly on the use of force. Every law is an authorization for the use of force on somebody under some conditions. Libertarians do support small government, but its function must be strictly limited to securing each citizen's rights to life, liberty, and property. That is, helping to defend them against those who would violate the non-aggression principle. Government may also provide a very few truly public goods or services which cannot be reasonably supplied privately. This is the type of government defined by the U.S. Constitution, which has been blatantly violated for decades. In such an all-voluntary world, peaceful, honest people will self-organize to form a free market economy. A free market economic system operates completely without force and is the only system consistent with libertarian principle. There can be no cronyism without the use of force. So the only way to earn wealth is to do a good job of satisfying the wants of other people. A free market economy allocates all resources, land, labor, and capital, in the most efficient manner, which results in the most rapid production of wealth. In this environment, private charities surely may freely organize to assist the less fortunate. It is not at all impossible that they could form an adequate safety net. Therefore, libertarian economic policies obviously do provide for the possibility of an adequate social demonstration.
30 seconds.
Yeah. Although the affirmative has already been proven, we would add that such a voluntary safety net is not only morally far superior to one that is based on force, but also that it would be more effective in every way. Furthermore, more rapid production of wealth would lessen the need for the safety net. Of course, these assertions go way beyond the proposition and therefore are not a part of this debate.
Okay, time.
By the way, thank you for waiting to the end. That's what we want. We want people to wait till the end to clap. Who will be delivering your opening statement?
Mary will, but I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Was it the word possibility of a social safety net as a part of the proposition?
I will check on that. So you're going to say point of order? Yep, okay, cool. All right, so Mary, you're going to be starting?
Yep. Can everybody hear me okay? Oh yeah, I bet you can.
Tell me when you're ready.
Everybody.
Hold on a second. Go ahead.
Libertarianism says that private charity, individual giving, and the free market will be enough of a safety net for those in poverty and those unable to provide for themselves. It advocates for abolishing the traditional safety nets of entitlements and redistribution because it considers them a violation of freedom by the state, but in solely focusing on government coercion, it ignores corporate coercion as well as pre-existing social relations and hierarchy. So it advocates for a government that would abolish the traditional safety nets while perpetuating the pre-existing conditions that make them necessary to preserve economic freedom for all. In other words, it creates the very wounds that charities would then need to work to bandage rather than working to prevent wounding in the first place. Our liberty to enter contracts willingly, to assert our rights, fluctuates with wealth and power, and safety nets are designed to soften that fluctuation and address inequality. What's more is that because corporations are even less democratic and transparent than a government, workers would have no redress to change things. Libertarians say that the market will adjust to correct social inequality and topple monopolies, but how? And I'm wondering if the gentleman on the other side of the room can provide concrete examples or evidence of this. Even if a rising tide lifts all ships, those that started lower than others will remain lower. This is true even without mentioning issues of sexism, racism, ableism, etc., which cut across society and remain unaddressed by libertarian principles. We intend to show throughout this debate that while the promise of libertarianism economic principles is the wealth and liberty of all, that what it provides in practice is a further entrenching of inequality while removing any means of significant redress, leaving the most vulnerable in our society at the mercy of poverty and illness. We also intend to explain how current social programs lessen poverty and why the destruction of those programs would plunge millions deeper into social inequality. And lastly, we intend to lay out what we believe to be a common sense understanding of the value and ethics of protecting the vulnerable with the strength of the powerful and the wealthy.
All right, that is the anti-side. All right, folks, I'll give you about a minute to collect your things. If you want to grab a beer real quick, you may do that. Next up is a 5-minute rebuttal from the pro side. I will say that's a quick 1 minute, so make it snappy here, folks. I did want to mention, as far as Raphael's protest, that the word possibility was not mentioned, but I think that the word can implies that it's a possibility and not a definite, so I think that's how we would handle that. All right. That quick minute is up. All right, I'm going to give a 5-minute rebuttal to the pro side. You may begin when I say so. Jim, you're going to be handling this one?
We're going to be
passing it off? Yeah. Totally fine. Just make sure that when you start, the people can hear you. Yeah.
Testing, testing.
What's that? Yeah. Let me see if I can mess with that, but starting... Wait. Okay, thank you, Joe. Joe, you're a gentleman and a scholar. All right, starting now, you may start. Go.
Okay, so one of the beauties of libertarianism is that by nature, it levels the playing field. You want to talk about inequalities and institutional racism, sexism, that sort of thing, all you need to do is look at the United States government to see how that has been implemented through the years. Libertarianism would allow the free market to correct these things. And this is something that would go along with our social safety nets. You want to talk about, you know, workers, sorry, Laura, you had a really good point that I'd like you to mention on this one. Getting used to this microphone. Yeah.
If we have a properly operating free market system, we're not going to have corporate coercion because competition is going to prevent that. There's competition in the sales area for the corporation from other competitors. There's also competition for labor. So if corporations don't treat their employees properly, they're going to go somewhere else, and that's fine. And believe me, I ran 2 companies, and we're very concerned about keeping good people and not having them go somewhere else. So it's not like you think.
Just to follow up too, coming from a business perspective, if we look at what we have now with even our social security system, it's filled with a bunch of IOUs. So basically, I don't expect to get my social security in 65 years. And to go deeper into the system, the issue is that we're working with a fiat currency system. So what we're trading our time and products for is basically fiat currency, which is we're not getting as much for our money as they did years and years ago. But those issues, in a libertarian society, if given the chance, we would certainly be working on more equality and more opportunities. Competition and opportunities give a lot more people hope.
I would point out also that systems that are based on force, you're worried about inequality of outcomes. We're interested in equality of opportunity. You're not always going to have equality of outcome. Systems that are based on force the equality by bringing down the top to the bottom. If we can provide a system that provides equality of opportunity and much more wealth production, as you said, the rising tide's going to float all boats. So if the people at the bottom are better off than they would be under a forced system that forces all equality at a lower level.
The other thing that's important to remember with anything the government creates is that people get anything made by the government. Anybody calling for the government to stop giving baby shoes, you're going to have opponents on the other side saying, well, you're going to take away shoes from children. How are they going to have shoes? Ignoring the history of, for many years when there were companies making shoes, there aren't, not too many babies going without shoes. So that's something that's important to remember in this argument from the libertarian standpoint, that the free market can create these things for people. People get used to entitlements, people get used to living off the government, and that's exactly what people who oppose libertarianism want. They want that, they want the people to be dependent. Libertarians, however, want freedom. We want freedom for everybody.
I would also point out that the word possibility was in the original proposition. You guys need to prove that it's impossible, and you can't do that. 1 minute.
Think we're done?
You got 1 minute, you're going to see the time. Okay, you have 40 seconds.
All right. I would just point out, too, that the difference, I mean, this is going way beyond the proposition here, but on a private charity, it's completely voluntary, so it's morally on a very high plane. Wealth being forcibly confiscated from individuals that earned it and given it to the people that didn't earn it, that's morally unacceptable. Private charity is 70% of the donated dollars go to the recipients. Government, it's 12%.
All right, we have a 5-minute rebuttal from the anti-side. Who will be starting that? Rafael, would you like to? About the monitors until if Bill comes back. come back, but I think we might get used to it as we go. Yep, all right, go ahead.
Born for the stage. Okay, so to address the final point that was made, we would absolutely argue that taxation isn't theft, it's not a violation of freedom, because personal income and corporate profits are built off of collective work. It's built off of the government that creates the conditions in which that work could occur in the first place. And it also doesn't mention the laborers underneath who are getting paid under a wage system, who are not getting an equal part of the profits according to the value that they are putting in to the system. And beyond that, I think it's absolutely counterfactual to say that the market will suddenly level the playing field as if racism and sexism only exists within the state. There's absolutely no evidence to say that we will have a perfect equilibrious, make everything equal and non-hierarchical. And we are, in fact, worried about the equality of opportunity, not the equality of outcomes, when there are workers who don't own the factory, aren't able to make the decisions about their own lives. There is already a difference of power as well as wealth. Rich people have more money than poor folks because rich people have more money because poor folks don't. That's relational wealth. And in general, when so few people control so many resources, when private property is able to accrue within just the owning class, then they are able to have an inordinate power over other people's lives.
So I have a couple things. So the first thing is that
Excuse me, I would call point of order on these people. They are not arguing the proposition. You're arguing the merits of various economic systems, but you're not arguing whether libertarian economic policies will allow for the possibility of an adequate social safety net.
But so yeah, go ahead and explain how your explanation there was in line with the proposition.
I was first and foremost arguing against your points, and I guess at the core of what I was trying to say is that there is a natural inequality baked into the system we currently have. Libertarianism doesn't address the issues of currently existing social hierarchy, social relations between workers and property owners, and thusly there is a lack of power and resources within, there is a difference between those different places within society, meaning that there would not be, sorry, give me one second.
Well, no, but I will say that as far, because I get to make the judgments on the point of orders, I do think that your claim in the free market is the most moral and best way to assure a social safety net. I think that Raphael is making the claim that that is not the case, and I think it's relevant only because he's making the claim that there are inherent problems in the free market as a system to ensure that sort of thing. So I think what his claim is that the natural inequalities built into the free market won't allow for the type of safety net.
The free market itself
We
is
don't
not.
now have a totally free.
Well, that's true. That's fine. But that's something that you can rebut with then later, but I'm going to say that that is relevant. Yeah. All right,
The
go
free
ahead.
market itself is not the safety net.
All right, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, so a couple things. So first of all, a lot of your arguments were against the current system. Arguments against the current system are not implicit arguments for the system that you're proposing. There's lots of alternative systems, so just arguing that the current system is not great is not an argument that your system is better. I'd also, regarding the private charities point, I don't know how much you know about private charities now, but they currently rely pretty heavily on federal and state grants to operate. And this weakness of charities was clearly demonstrated by the shuttering of a lot of charities and the rundown of work that a lot of them could perform during the Pennsylvania budget crisis. We heard about it all the time for that whole year. Thanks. I'd also add that charities without support through government support, federal support, grant support, are going to be prone to support the interests of the wealthy because they have the money to donate. And then interests of smaller minority groups would not be addressed as adequately, like rare diseases, interests of the poor, interests of women, those sorts of things would not be addressed as equally because the money would not be concentrated in that place. And there would be no way of leveling that playing field. And again, I'm not sure what you did, Roy, I don't know what your job was or what your business was, but there are plenty of people who can't leave their jobs just because they don't like them. So I'm not sure what you were doing that people could just leave and find another job, but that's not the reality for the majority of people.
I'd like to call point of order on that again. We're not talking about leveling a playing field. We're talking about an adequate social safety net for the people who need it at the bottom.
We need an adequate social safety net to make sure that everyone has an equal fair shake at living their best life, at reaching their potential. We're talking about that everyone having an equality of opportunity. That's why safety net exists.
If I may, I believe that both sides are trying to argue whether or not there is an adequate, that the social safety net, right, is defined by a, how do I put this, equality of opportunity, right? And I believe that the debate right now is whether or not, what system ensures equality of opportunity. Your claim was that they're arguing for inequality of outcomes. They're claiming that they are arguing for equality of opportunity as well.
I'm saying a social safety net is when somebody can't make it in the world. Is there some help that keeps them from dying in the gutter? That's
Sure.
the safety net.
And how do you think that her statements were off topic there?
Well, she's talking about leveling the playing field and equalizing so there's not income differences and things like
I'm
that.
talking about with regard to private charities and the interests that they would support, which is the social safety net that you described libertarianism having, which is private charities. So I'm addressing that particular point, which is you have zero evidence that private charities could possibly do that.
Some people are more likely to die in the gutter than others, and we need social safety net to make sure that those certain groups are less likely to do so.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, you have 1 minute and 20 seconds, starting now.
Thank you very much. To more directly address the issue of the social safety net and the charities that under a libertarian regime would be responsible for stringing that social safety net tight, I would note that charities require money. They need donations from private people. And there was an assertion a moment ago that under this free market libertarian system, there would be greater wealth generated and then presumably greater donations to charity. And I would note that under a libertarian regime, there would be no restrictions to prevent the formation of monopolies among major industries, nor would there be any restrictions on collusion among the disparate companies providing certain services, therefore being able to depress wages, keep benefits down, and prevent the accumulation of wealth by the vast majority of people who would be necessary to make the charitable donations to support the people that can't earn money for themselves.
Just want to quick add that poor folks aren't necessarily free agents, and when you're given the choice of work or starve, you can't just walk away from an exploitative job.
And that's time, right there, that's time. All right, we have a 4-minute rebuttal from the pro side. We're gonna just go right through this. Who is speaking? I'll give you 30 seconds to talk it over.
Well, look, I'll start. I still protest that we're way beyond the proposition.
Okay, I have not started yet. Can you explain your
That's okay.
problem? No. I want to know your protest. I would like to know your protest.
We're willing to proceed and debate beyond the...
No. I guess I just want to know how you think that that's irrelevant to the conversation that we're having.
Well, let me just talk about some of the things they were saying.
Okay.
About private charity.
In that case, I will make it part of your time. Go ahead.
Right now, private charities are donation, private donations are $358 billion annually to private charities. And that's a lot of money. And that's in spite of the fact that the government is confiscating 31% of people's incomes, average over the whole country. So I think that's pretty good. If you look at the efficiency, 70% of donated dollars reach the recipients. For government welfare programs, 12% get down to the recipients. So there's less fraud with private
Can I call a
charities.
point of order on that, or maybe bullshit? I'm not sure.
Use the euphemism, please.
I'm sorry, the bull poop.
Okay. All right. So
I think it's a clarification, maybe.
Okay. Make sure to clarify.
Okay. So the question that I have about it, the clarification that I want is it 12% of taxes that go to entitlements, or is it 12% of the things set aside for entitlement programs that go to people?
12% of the dollars that it costs taxpayers.
Okay, no, wait. So her point is an interesting one. I want to know, so your claim is that in a private charity, the percentage, the proportion of money that goes towards actually helping people is higher by a pretty wide margin
By 2.5 times.
than the money that goes towards the government. So you're not saying 12% of my paycheck goes towards helping people. You're saying that 12% of the money from my paycheck that goes towards helping people is actually helping people.
Yeah, I have the reference here.
All right, I'll take a look at your reference and I will fact check that reference while we go. All right, so we'll start that back up again as soon as I unlock my phone. I'm not a technophile. Excuse me. Sorry. Go ahead. Starting now, you have 46 seconds. You have 3 minutes and 14 seconds coming.
So, private charity is so much more efficient than government welfare. It's crazy that we're doing government welfare. We're just supporting a bunch of bureaucrats and some graft and whatever. And the overhead of collecting the taxes is 18%. So that's a lot of money. So if we have $380 billion being contributed by individuals to private charity now, we're confiscating 31% of the wealth, of the income. If we scaled the government back and got it out of all these businesses and had a government, say the federal budget, more like $1 trillion instead of 3.7, we could confiscate only 10% of the income. And surely private giving $8 billion. And consider that the $358 billion in private charity is the equivalent of about $1 trillion of government welfare. So come on, this is not making sense. And I have, by the way, all those figures here as well.
One thing I'd like to mention is a lot of people say that what I'm hearing from the other side is that if under a libertarian regime, is the word they used, that there'd be no way that people would contribute money to charities, that charities possibly couldn't sustain off of that. But I think it just overlooks the generosity of people in general. I think sometimes people that want to take money from us at the barrel of a gun is that we won't give it over any other way. We are in a bar, so I want to ask you guys, when you go out and get a drink, do you tip? Even though, right? Is there a law? Are you going to get arrested if you don't tip? No, you won't. You tip because it's the right thing to do. And I know a lot of bartenders, I know a lot of servers, and they make well above minimum wage because people are generous and understand that in the society we live in, they depend on those tips to live. And I think that that's a good parallel to...
I don't know if this is bull S, or... I guess I can't point to specific statistics regarding the fluctuation of wages for servers.
You can't BS an anecdote.
I can't argue with the anecdote, but that's from...
I don't know, we have some bartenders right here.
I'll bring
we can possibly...
Do we want to ask
the parade of bartenders?
I'll ask any of the bartenders here if they've ever made below minimum wage or made minimum wage on a check.
Perhaps living wage would be more relevant. But anyway, sorry, continue.
Well, no, wait. Is this like an official BS call?
I don't know if you can BS an anecdote.
Well, I think you can BS an anecdote. You're saying that you were making the claim that you would ask any server whether or not they would.
I'd say that I know a lot of servers, and the ones that I know, I'm not saying the ones here specifically. I mean, if we want to bring them out and talk to them.
You literally just said
So fine. So go
Jenny?
ahead and bring them out. I will. I feel like this is a Johnny Cochran if the glove doesn't fit moment for me, but.
Love always fits.
But I know that I have some friends that are bartenders who do very well and quit their day jobs because they made more money as bartenders than they did working for a company, working for a school.
Yeah, I don't know how this is.
Yeah, the point of order, I don't know how necessarily that's even relevant,
So
because also I don't understand the direct connection to charity. You're getting a service directly for you. You just got a drink. You're not worried about a kid with, like, it's not, this kid with cancer got health care, so then you're giving the doctor a tip, like...
You're accusing me of not caring about kids with cancer? This is a new low.
No, not you specifically. That's not what I said either, but you know.
No, wait, let's settle this. So your claim is that, can you repeat your claim straight up?
My claim is that you can't directly compare people's compulsion to tip. Once again, we've been socialized to tip in the first place. Tip is returned for a direct service to you. Charity is for all sorts of not only diseases, not medical stuff, but living situations that could be completely irrelevant to you. You may have never heard.
So the point of order is about the relevance of tipping to charitable giving.
Yes.
Jim, would you like to defend that claim?
My rebuttal to that would be then, why does anybody give to charity? I can tell you why I give to charity, because it makes me feel good. I feel like I do get a benefit from giving to charity. Whether or not that's for everybody, but that's anecdotal because I'm speaking from personal experience. But I get something from giving to charity that I feel good. Whereas, and like tipping a bartender, I feel good that I'm doing the right thing there and not being an a-hole and walking out of the bar without giving them the money that I know I should give them. Not that I have to give it to them, not that there's a law in the books from the government that says I have to tip, but that I know society says you should give about this amount of money, about 20%. Sometimes more if the service was good. What I'm saying is this is a voluntary system. This is totally voluntary. It's not enforced. I'm not going to get arrested. Nobody's going to come to my house and point a gun at me if I don't tip. And this is the same thing I'm saying about that's a very libertarian principle.
Here's where I can't get involved. Their argument is that your anecdotal evidence is not evidence. It's not relevant. But here's where I can't get involved. I can't say whether or not that's a good support for your side or not. So I think as it stands, I'm going to let that claim go because that's the claim that you're making. Can
I clarify that the claim is that some servers that he knows do okay?
No. Well, you could if you wanted to.
I'm just making sure that I'm
You could if you wanted to. But what I would say is that he's drawing a parallel. That Jim is drawing a parallel between non-compulsory giving. He's suggesting that people give tips. That people give tips even though they're not coerced to, and that should be a model of what charitable giving is. I can't say that that's irrelevant to the claim that people will give to private charities. If you want to disagree with that, obviously you can. But
I just say one more thing?
well, I mean, are you trying to clarify the proposition?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because what the question was how tipping a server for a service that they provided to you, like paying them, is the same as someone donating to a charity.
Because it's not paying them. It's not part of my bill. It's a totally voluntary amount of money that I'm deciding to give.
I think that's your answer. Okay, you have 1 minute. You have 1 minute to go. Whoever wants to take it for 1 minute, starting now. Yes, you have 1 minute.
Okay, I just want to continue with the comparison of private charities versus government welfare a little bit. Private charities more local and personal with better connection between the donors and recipients. Government welfare is remote, bureaucratic, impersonal, with no possible connection between the victims and the beneficiaries. There's less fraud with private charity because its very nature makes it easier to detect and eliminate it. There's lots of fraud in government welfare. Its impersonal nature does not discourage the fraud as strongly and makes it harder to detect and eliminate. And in private charities, if you think a charity has too much overhead or fraud, just stop contributing to it.
10 seconds.
If it receives too few contributions, it'll go away. Go ahead, just try not contributing any portion of your taxes. The government never goes away.
Time. All right. I do want to report on my fact checking of the 12%. The fact of the matter is, I would consider that a half-truth, which is, you know, that's half-truth, you know? It's true. In the sense that the statistics demonstrate that 12% of the money actually reaches the people who need it, but at the same time, just suggesting that 12% does not go to the bureaucrats does not in itself mean that those services do not go to the people who need it. Because of the way that the statistics are skewed, it seems to me that if a bureaucrat counts as someone who is providing the service, then the service is being directly related to the person. So I think that that's a half-truth. I think on one hand, that it's true that the money doesn't go directly to the person or to the service, but if you're saying that the only thing that matters is that the money is going to a bureaucrat versus the person, then that doesn't quite capture the whole picture because the bureaucrat could be providing the service.
I think the main point, though, is that only 12% is going to the people. Whether or not it's going to a bureaucrat or in a black hole, I guess, somewhere is the... But it's
all I see here is that 70 cents of every government entitlement dollar goes to government bureaucrats doesn't exactly relate what those government bureaucrats are doing. In other words, yes, there you go. In other words, if say the government bureaucrat gets paid for helping someone enroll in a heat program so they can heat their house, the money itself is not going to the bureaucrat, but the money itself is not going to the private citizen, but it's going to the bureaucrat to help a service. And then I think that's a distinction that needs to be made. So I think your numbers are correct. I don't think that the intent of the numbers are completely clear yet. Would you like to disagree with that?
No, I think if it helps, the issue is the government bureaucrat has a taxpayer-funded pension.
Sure.
So there is additional overhead. Now, we look at the Commonwealth Foundation, they pointed out that Pennsylvania is $18 trillion with unfunded pension liabilities for departments that are already working in Pennsylvania. Where is that coming from? You know, it's just that if you have private charities, they're not getting a taxpayer-funded pension. They have it built into their system. So the issue is continuing this program the way it's going. But, you know, again, our debt continues to rise.
Sure, but I think for right now, and I think that could be a point that you can argue, but for right now, the exact BS call was about the number of 12%. And what I'm saying is you're correct that 70% goes to bureaucrats, but that I think it's also true that 70% that goes to the bureaucrats does not take into account what the bureaucrat is doing for that money. And so I think it's half true. Nope, I think I'm making my judgment on that. And you guys, you can mention it in your rebuttal, which you have 4 minutes to do.
What phrase do we call for out of beer?
What's that? How do you get more beer? Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Auditor General candidate from the Libertarian Party. If you'd like to get this man a Yingling Lager, you can do yourself a patriotic service and do that. Okay, there he goes. Just tell him it's for the debater. Here we go. Starting with 4 minutes. Are you starting, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
I just want to say that if we're talking about how much of the money in cash dollars directly goes to someone, then I'm definitely calling your bullshit on 70% of charity dollars go directly as money to those people, because I guarantee you that is not accurate. They're not going in checks, and 12% of money, like dollar money given to people, right? And so that's not a comparable figure then. Because 70% of money going to help people from a charity doesn't necessarily mean that 70% of the money is going in cash or checks to those people. It's also provided in services to those people. And so that's not a comparable, two comparable measures.
Also, we are in no way saying that the government is good right now, that the government that we currently have is the most efficient system, that it distributes things efficiently, but we need more democratic ownership and control not getting rid of more government to give private owners more power, leaving us at the mercy of the free market. Part of what I think what we would argue is that part of the issues in society have to do with allowance of heavy private concentrations of wealth. And also we're talking a lot about like giving money at the barrel of a gun, but not addressing the fact that that the working class, that poor people have to give labor at the mercy of starvation, at the mercy of sickness. This isn't a voluntary system for all people out there. That's why we were talking about pre-existing hierarchies and level playing fields, because not everybody is just ready to go and has the same chance at finishing first in the race.
I was going to add really quickly to that, I'm sorry, that the reason that it's relevant is because you're arguing that libertarianism, just by existing, is going to equal the playing field, and you've provided no evidence to prove that that would be true. And what we're saying is that it will actually make the playing field less equal to start with.
And taxation isn't theft.
In terms of the existence of private charities to provide the social safety net currently handled in large part by the government, I would note that I unfortunately don't have the exact figures to back this up, but I think it is safe to say that a great deal of current private charitable giving is done in furtherance of achieving certain tax incentives that are offered by the government at this time. Fast, charitable foundations are set up for the purpose of offsetting income under the charitable deduction. So, in the absence of such tax incentives, I question whether the vast charitable giving figures that were put out during the first portion of this would continue to be in play, or whether that wealth would just be held onto because nothing is being received in return. I would also note that presently, while government social safety net may not be the ideal system, it may not be the perfect system, it is a system that provides benefits for a vast swath of the population, whereas under a private charitable regime, there would only be charitable relief for those individuals suffering from maladies that those with money choose to donate money toward. Those with obscure illnesses, obscure conditions, may not be as well compensated as those that the people with the money choose to give money toward. And finally, I would note very quickly that charitable giving is not going to be able to provide for the health care needs of as many people as are presently receiving subsidized health care through the government.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we've reached the vaunted question and answer period. This is open-ended. We have plenty of time. I'm going to ask some questions of both sides. The judges are going to ask questions of both sides, and you the audience, are going to answer. Well, not yet. You can put your hand down. That's cool. You're going to ask some questions of both sides. I would hope that your questions are about claims that are already made, but if you have a sort of hypothetical or some sort of situation that can kind of be brought to bear on this debate, I would hope you would do it. My first question is for the libertarian side. So it seems to me that classic economy, through the Humean and Adam Smith kind of way, suggests that the free market is a means to an end, right? And my question for you is, based on what you said, what is the end that the free market is supposed to establish? Is it supposed to be equality and eventual sort of well-being for the group, or is it freedom? And if it's freedom, then does that go against the general proposition that we have here?
I disagree with your premise. I don't think.
Well, so my point is that unless you're arguing that the free market is the golden path in itself, the idea is that the free market is a means to an end. That's what Adam Smith argued, was that that the free market is a means to the commonwealth. The idea that everybody does better under a free market. That's what Adam Smith argued. So my question is, Do you see it as a means to an end? And if so, what is the end?
No, I don't see it as a means to the end.
It's the end in itself.
I mean, the point is that, as I thought I said in the opening argument, the free market is what happens when you have peaceful, honest people. They and they're free. They self-organize into a free market economy. It's because that's the way that they can be most successful. That's the way that they can best improve.
So you just actually answered my question, is that the free market is the best way for people to be successful. It's a means to that end.
The best way for them to improve their standard.
Yeah, so in other words, we don't like the free market just because we're obsessed with the free market. We like it because it ends with some result that we like, which is that most people are more successful under it.
I like choice.
Okay.
Right now, we have Republicans and Democrats, and that's all we're given. It's like having Coke and Pepsi, and I hate Coke and Pepsi. I like water. And the free market gives you more choice.
Point of order for
healthcare,
if that's possible, for question and answer section.
You can call me out for asking the wrong question. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, is that the only?
Well, I think let them ask the question, and we'll talk about it.
Let me just relate to healthcare. I want to choose how I medicate, how I self-medicate. I don't have that choice now in the system that we have. Libertarians are looking to provide more choices, and that is the free market.
So you would agree that the free market is a means to the end of more choice?
It's the best way for my daughter to grow up, to know that there's choices, that she doesn't have to be regulated to one profession or one job, that the world, there's numerous possibilities for her to go.
And so the free market, if you had to say, is a means to an end of more choice. Is more choice as an end better for providing a safety net?
Well, again, we have X amount of states in the union here, and we have X amount of petri dishes of ways to find out what is the best way to solve those problems. Colorado has one way, Washington State, California, Pennsylvania. So we need that freedom of choice. And whatever those ends are that we come to, we want it peacefully and we want to voluntarily do it. We don't want to use it through the power of force, through government, because it has limited our choices. It has restricted our choices for health care, to deal with cancer, to go to a healthcare provider. We get restricted. The IRS restricts us, and the IRS forces us to do charity, to hide wealth, where people would gladly give it for folks that don't have kids. It goes into education, it goes into healthcare, it goes into banking, it goes into the currency, and all those things. So we do want freedom of choice, and we do want to help those that need help. We want to empower individuals, not create dependency. And what we have through the government is creating dependency.
So to you, the free market is the way to maximize choice?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why people came from all over the world to come to the United States, because we had that at one time.
Okay. For you guys, how do you defend against the claim that what you want is equality of opportunity versus equality of outcomes? I think that the libertarian side might suggest that what you're actually interested in is equality of outcomes. How do you defend against that claim?
He talked about wanting a free choice for his daughter, but you don't have a free choice if you're poor. The market doesn't care. The market will crush you. You better hope, under libertarian system, you better hope that a charity cares, that you can be uplifted out of your poverty. And if factory owners and bosses and whomever control the vast majority of resources, then you really don't have much of a say. You have to sign on that dotted line and have that exploitative job that doesn't give you enough money to feed your family or get yourself in a better situation. Workers had to fight to get these rights. They weren't just charitably given from their company owners. That just simply hasn't happened. And also to argue that the free market is the best way to organize humanity, that's just the one that we've had for the past 100 years. We've had agrarianism, we've had hunter-gatherer societies, we've had feudalism. That's like me arguing that because of Marx's dialectic, that we are now soon, the conditions have been set for socialism, which is the actual best way of organizing humanity, which will then lead us to the even better way of organizing humanity, other communism. It's what we've been living under for the time being. There's no suggestion that's actually the best way where we can be the most free. Yes.
Who do you put in charge?
Quickly.
So, I was just going to say, one of the Libertarian Party's principles is a free market healthcare system, which you mentioned and a couple of people mentioned, which is having freedom for individuals to determine the level of health insurance they want, level of health care they want, which I think is really key. And the argument is that libertarianism opens up this cornucopia of choices for everybody, and everybody's free to choose whatever they want because suddenly everybody has that ability. But if you don't have wealth, you don't have the same number of choices as someone who does have wealth. So if someone is a super wealthy person, of course they can absolutely choose to go to the cancer center in New York City and have health care. But if you are a single mom with 3 kids, you can choose to go there, but you probably can't pay to go there. So are your choices really completely free? And are they completely out there?
Okay, my question for the libertarians for this side is, one of the claims that Mr. Seneft made was that once the government starts to satisfy the wants of the people, then they become accustomed to it, and we can't distinguish what is something they become accustomed to versus something that they genuinely need. But couldn't it possibly also be the case that once they become accustomed to a certain way of life, it's because it's actually valuable and good? So if somebody becomes accustomed to Social Security, it's not just because they're becoming dependent, it's because Social Security actually works and they feel like they can live a valuable life once they receive it.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for Social Security because I don't collect it and I don't expect that I ever will get to. Because of our current system, we don't have any way of knowing that those funds are going to be managed responsibly. But as far as just because you become accustomed to something and like it, I know people that have been accustomed to taking heroin and they love it. That doesn't mean it's good for them or right for them. Sometimes, you get things, and all I can say is I disagree with that.
Okay, so for the anti side, one of the things that you mentioned was that the reason that private charities are so prominent is because of the existing system. That a system that addressed some of the economic issues that you're talking about would not have the problems that charities address. Could you explain that for a second? Yeah, in other words, you guys claim that it was the system that we have that makes charities necessary. And I'd like to know how we could get rid of those systematic issues that would make charities not necessary.
I think what we actually argued was that that the libertarian system would be creating, I remember is this from my opening statement? Okay, yeah, so what I actually said, just to clarify, was that libertarian system advocates for a government that would abolish traditional safety nets while perpetuating pre-existing conditions that make those safety nets necessary to preserve economic freedom for all, which means that it's creating and perpetuating the wounds that the charities are then needing to bandage rather than working to prevent them in the first place.
So basically, we need a charity to help poor people, and the libertarian system is going to create many, many more poor people.
Okay, all right. All right, I'd like to pass it over to the judges. The judges get to ask questions. You don't have to ask a question. Audience, get ready to ask a question if you're ready to. Judges, anybody would like to ask a question? Rob Bigley, no, you do it in the microphone. You don't just ask that person.
So, could you repeat the prompt one more time? Because this leads to my question. The prompt is, I'll repeat it after you. The libertarian economic principles can provide for adequate. Well, I already can. The responsibility, okay, of an adequate social safety net. And it's interesting because for much of this, it felt like we were arguing apples and oranges. Because I think, so what my question is, and maybe I'll ask this side first, is, in your estimation, what is an adequate social safety net? So I'm going to ask the question to both sides. So go ahead.
First off, I guess in my mind, the relationship between myself and whoever I'm working for, I need to make sure that I'm getting paid in sound currency, something that's not fiat currency that we have now, that I have the ability to save. If we look at the amount of people now, we're all in debt. We're not saving for our own Social Security. I mean, not many people are. I mean, that's, you know, just my personal feeling. If in my business, if I had the ability to hire you, and you said, Sean, I want to work for you for X amount of dollars, but I really don't save well. You know, I gamble, I have a drug problem, I go to the bar and drink. I'd say, oh, right. But I'm just use that as an example of how we're working together. I could say, okay, well, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars, whatever we agree with, and I'm going to put X amount in silver or gold or Bitcoin away. And when you're done with employment in my services, I'm going to give it to you, whether it's a week, a year, 2 years, 10 years, so on and so forth. So you can take your money. Or you could be like Roy Manette. Roy knows what he wants to do, puts his money in the stock market, invests it, saves it, scrims it, and he has his money. And he deals directly with his doctors like we do with a health savings account, not relying on others to make sure that I'm getting the best price for the best service, not thinking insurance is going to take care of it so I don't have to follow up on my doctor bill and they're overcharging me and I'm having wrong tests done. You know, but we want to save. I mean, we should want to save. We shouldn't want to put our old people out of their homes because they can't afford their school taxes. And they should be able to save that money away, squirrel it away, or pay for somebody that needs to go to school or, you know, learn and not be poor. I mean, a lot of people have been poor and have worked their way up through the ranks, but it's harder and harder. Even with my own business, I couldn't do that today in today's regulatory environment. I started 20 years ago, and it's still tough. But I'm not looking for a handout. I'm tightening my belt. We're doing with less on that end, but I don't want to rely on the government to take care of me.
Okay. The idea of a social safety net over here. You'll get a question from us again.
Maybe it's a point of clarification, but I think the question was what's an adequate safety net, and I don't think that answer addressed the question. Because the safety net is what's there to catch you if all these other things fail.
You know what, and I understand that. I think if I was a trapeze artist, I would go down and check my net, you know, and see what type of net was going to catch me. In today's society, people just assume that the government is going to be there. And we've said this earlier, the IOUs in the Social Security system are IOUs. Our Congress has been borrowing against all that money. We're on a Ponzi scheme now, so we need to correct it. People need to resume responsibility for their own safety net. There need to be more choices. Again, whether Geico or USAA, whoever is creating these nets to say, hey, put your money, put your 10%, 20%, whatever you're making, save it away. We're going to help you with your safety net. And that's what we're saying as libertarians. We want to create more opportunities for people. We're not just wanting to get rich and be miserly or Scrooge-ish in that sense. So what is an adequate social safety net? A lot of people don't know, because they presume they're going to get Social Security, and Social Security isn't even enough to live on nowadays.
I'm not taking sides on this at all. I just want a clarification. So then, the libertarian point would be that the social safety net, an adequate social safety net, is one that comes through the capitalist system in such a way that people can provide their own safety net, is what you're saying.
That's really how it should be.
Okay.
I mean,
thank you.
Yeah, let's go over to this side and to answer Mr. Bigley's question. We're going to ask some questions. What you think is an adequate social safety net?
Okay, so essentially, I want to start with why we need a safety net, to make sure everyone has that equal fair shake, has that equal possibility to start from, has the same possibility of reaching their potential, so it's not super easy to fall and impossibly hard to get back up. And interestingly enough, we actually have the same goals as libertarians. Libertarianism. We want everyone to have the liberty to meet their potential. What we're saying is there are certain hierarchies, certain sets of social relations that exist right now that are preventing that from happening. A great example is, he talked a lot about investment and saving. Number one, there's a lot of cultural knowledge of investment that is simply not in different communities of color, for example. I don't even know what FIAA or whatever the heck that was. Like, I don't know. I tried to open a Vanguard Roth IRA that said I needed, which is a tremendous thing. Apparently we all should do it, but I need $3,000 to open that up. I don't have that money, and I have a decent, real good job, at least for my cultural knowledge, to be honest. And I think there's this idea that poverty is the poor person's fault, and it's not. That's a lack of planning. That is a lack of just tucking up. And honestly, I feel for you that starting your small business was so hard. And I think the system is straight up stacked against new entrants because of just allowing so much accumulation within the people up top, who people up top being larger business owners who have way more money than you do, who have been able to accumulate wealth, concentrate power, not just themselves, but throughout generations. And to speak about racism one more time, we have generation upon generation of black people who had their labor stolen from them, who were not given education, who redlining within housing discrimination. We're still getting killed by cops. So I don't know.
That's been done by Republicans. That's been done by Republicans and Democrats for years. 1820s, we were slaveocracy.
Okay, so Dr. Manna says that she feels that still didn't address the question the same way she said libertarians. Go ahead, Mary.
So what I was going to say is what we have talked about is that an adequate social safety net is one that provides everybody, whether they're a contributor to society or not, with a living wage, where they're able to have shelter, have food, have medical care, that is a safety net.
It's a good sounding question.
Real quick, Dr. Manna says
cannot define an adequate social net. What it would have been 100 years ago is not the same as what it is today.
But that doesn't.
Not the same as what it would be in the future.
But that doesn't mean that you can't define it. It just means that it's hard to define.
Well, it sort of does, because even today, whatever you say it is, there's going to be some people that say, well, that's too much, and there's going to be people that say, well, that's not enough. So it's hard to define.
That doesn't mean that it's hard to define, but that doesn't mean that it's subjective.
I think what both sides are talking about is creating a system that allows people to need less of a safety net. A safety net is something, but that's not, as you were arguing earlier, that is not the proposition that we were given. The given proposition is, can libertarianism provide for an adequate safety net? So we need to address what happens when people fall into circumstances that go beyond their control, that are outside of proper planning. So assuming somebody has opportunities to earn a decent wage and all these other things, what happens when you slip through? What happens when the best laid plans don't work out?
Well, I'm arguing that some people are born slipped through the cracks. And some people start from zero, start from negative even, and have already fallen. It's not like we're all starting out, all doing great at the same exact start of the race. And for me, a safety net is meant to address pre-existing societal wrongs to make sure that we're all equal. Maybe safety trampoline would even be the best thing. I don't even know. I think it tracks.
Yes.
Go ahead, Travis.
May I simply suggest that an adequate social safety net, what it is not. an adequate social safety net is not being left at the mercies of, or rather, left in the hands, the benevolent hands of capitalism. An adequate social safety net is not that when some horrible crisis befalls you, when you fall into terrible circumstances, your only savior is going to be the great deus ex machina that is the free market. A social safety net is something more concrete than that. A social safety net is something that's going to allow you to get back up if you fall down, and I don't believe that libertarianism provides that.
Okay, Dr. Chuck Ward would like to ask. Dr. Chuck Ward would like to ask a question.
Yeah, if I could, I'm going to throw a different question at each side. So I'll start with the pro-libertarian side. And in a way, this is like directed specifically at Roy, if I might. You made a remark somewhere along the line, maybe a couple of times, regarding the free market and the power of the free market as not only the most efficient way, efficient means of wealth generation, but also for providing this social safety net for people that slip through the cracks. In discussing this, you also seem to suggest that not only is it the most efficient means to these ends, but it's a kind of, it's sort of the natural way that people self-organize, if they are free, in their sort of economic relations to one another. And I wonder what you would say to a sort of challenge to that claim of sort of naturalness, because it would seem that, you know, one could argue that it's really more of a theoretical construct, given that history shows us that people have actually organized into systems where there's all kinds of sort of monopoly and collusion and an attempt to control power and wealth for one's own benefit at the expense of other people in society, so that we get these kind of systems of inequality that the other side has been talking about. So whether it's the government or corporate interests or gangs, for lack of a better term, what we actually see happening throughout history is this society self-organizing in these ways where people are taking advantage of others. And so I wonder how you might respond to that kind of challenge.
Well, 25 words or less. What's the question? No.
I could try to put it in a shorter form.
This goes back to a question Matt asked a long time ago, which is, what is the end? To produce some economic system? No. Libertarians are not after that. Libertarians are after liberty, freedom. Libertarians say that all of the rights of all of the people need to be protected all the time, with no exceptions. Liberty and justice for all. That is the end. What happens if you achieve that is, yes, people can self-organize into a market economy. And they do that because that serves their needs best. It raises their standard of living the fastest, and it doesn't involve any coercion. Freedom works. Force doesn't work. All the central planning systems have collapsed.
Given the historical evidence of people's dastardly tendencies, how is that freedom going to be protected?
But that's a proper role of the government, is to make sure to arbitrate issues. You know, we have a drug war, that's why we have gangs, because of the drug war. It was perpetuated by Richard Nixon. To make sure there's no fraud, to make sure they're not massacring Indians, enslaving blacks. You know, that was totally wrong. But the proper role of government is to make sure there isn't fraud and to protect the weakest against those that are controlling our monetary supply, that are reducing our choices. But we do need a government. We're not saying we don't need a government, but we need an accountable government. You know, the biggest And the biggest employers in the United States is the government right now for government jobs. You know, instead of letting the free market take its place. I mean, it's tough out there in the working world, and I'm doing it every day in the hemp industry, which we should be growing hemp, but politicians are sitting there, oh, back and forth, it's drugs, you know, instead of following what Canada's doing and Europe's doing and everything else. We could create industry, but who's in the way? The government.
Okay, so could I ask a different question of this side? So the Libertarian side has made the point of more than once that taxation is coercion, or even more strongly theft. And of course you denied this. But let me press it a little bit. Given that some people don't like how much they have to pay in taxes, and some people, many of the same people, don't like what those government funds are being used for, and they face severe penalties, including imprisonment if they just decide to stop doing it. How can you sort of answer their claim a little more fully that the taxation is a fair way to acquire the means to provide for the social safety?
Well, the issue with that is, once again, personal income and corporate profits are not simply the result of a single person, a titan of industry, getting through this world and on their own merits making all of this money. The government, the state, which is funded by everyone, creates the conditions for this money to be made in the first place, for this business to exist. Not to mention that, especially with corporate profits, private ownership of capital allows very few people at the top to make all of the decisions about what happens to the profits that company makes. So then we have a disenfranchised bottom, a working class, who don't have any democratic ownership or control or ability to make decisions about their own labor. And I might go so far as to argue that our current labor system is more theft than taxation is, because we have people at the whims of their business owners, sort of, once again, having to sign on the dotted line to get a job, even if it's not a living wage, even if they can't get their insurance, they can't get taken care of, because otherwise they'll die quicker. They will absolutely starve if they don't work under those conditions. So I think it's not private owners of capital who are being disenfranchised by taxation. I think it is workers who don't have any say over their own labor, who are coerced not just by the state, but by corporations, and by capital, who are in fact the disenfranchised ones. So to answer that, we need more democratic ownership and control. We need redistribution of wealth. We need all of these. Yeah, I said it, baby. We need these different systems to correct please, you want to come here? We're at a church. Sorry, enough politicking. Yeah, Travis got it.
Travis, make it 20 seconds or less, and then I'm going to go to the audience.
Government is big, it's ugly, in a lot of ways it's stupid, but it's ours. And if enough of us disagree with it, we can change it. The tax money that's taken, in theory, can benefit us. It should benefit us. In a lot of ways, it does benefit us, even if we don't see it. Under a strictly capitalist libertarian system, unless you're the guy holding all the money, you don't call the shots.
Okay, Dr. Bennett would like to ask a question, and then I'm going to open up to the audience. So if you want to ask a question, I got about 4 questions that you can ask, so line up around there to get ready. Oh, I'm surprised that this guy's asking a question. Here it is, Dr. Bennett.
So early on in the debate, I think it was Roy made the point that the premise that we were given, or the proposition that we're arguing, is libertarian economic policies can provide for the possibility of an adequate social safety net. And I would argue that the burden of proof is not on this side to demonstrate that they can't,
it is on your side to demonstrate that they can. So my question is, without referring to anecdotal evidence, what evidence is there using either current or pre-existing libertarian systems, or given what you know about human behavior, what suggests to you that a free market, a pure free market system, would provide for an adequate social safety net? So what actual evidence do you have that this system would lead to a situation where people would freely give to charity and that those charities could adequately provide a safety net?
Excellent question.
All right. First of all, we need to make the point strongly that we do not now live under a free market system. It is screwed up by government force in so many ways. So a lot of the stuff that's coming from over there is based on the current situation, not on a libertarian economics.
But don't you think that's the essence of her question, though, is what evidence do you have that your system will
Well,
be better
yeah,
than that
I'm
system?
getting to that. The evidence I don't have it anymore, I gave it to you. Right there is the evidence, is that even with 31% of people's income being confiscated by force, $358 billion a year is donated by individuals to private charity. So I think that's some pretty strong evidence. And if we didn't confiscate quite so much of their income, they might donate even more. I think that's a reasonable assumption as well.
Let me just chime in if it's okay.
Can I just address the point that he made, though? The point that you made about people giving to charity now also exists within the system that they were talking about. And the point that this side made was that there are considerable tax deductions to be had for making charitable donations. So there is a reinforcer, a direct monetary
There
reinforcer
might be a
for making.
reinforcer, but Americans are generous. Every time there's an earthquake in some other part of the world, people give millions of dollars to that. I mean, there's ample evidence that people care about other people, and they're going to be glad to contribute to charities.
Okay, I have one more question for you, and then the first question is going to go towards them, I'm pretty sure, right? The question is for them?
I have one for each.
All right, fantastic. One of our online viewers, hello online viewers, thank you. One of our online viewers, Eric Anderson, you just got called out. If you're taking online questions for the pro side, do you write off your charitable donations on your taxes? Does that mechanism perhaps underlie their faith in the generosity of the public? If I can paraphrase that, in other words, under the existing system, you get a benefit for giving charitable giving. In other words, does that have something to do with the motivation for the $358 billion that is given?
So this is asking us personally if we've...
Well, no, I don't think it's just an anecdotal question. I think it's a question of, do you think that the fact that you get tax breaks for giving charitable giving is a factor in the fact that people give so much?
So you're asking me for my opinion, which is no. I mean, so one example from my personal life is I donated an old car to some charity. I think it was the Purple Heart Foundation, and they gave me a receipt for like $800, which is what they assessed as the value of the car. So I did write it off, and I don't remember it making any effect at all on my taxes. So I know when my friends give to Kickstarter campaigns, which didn't exist many years ago, things like Kickstarter, GoFundMe, I think most of the giving in this country, people don't give because of charity. So I mean, or give because of tax breaks. That's my personal opinion, if that's what you're asking for.
Well, I don't know if it's a personal opinion question so much as it like a general idea of human nature. I mean, like, in other words, the question seems to suggest that people might give because they get something back, which I don't think seems implausible. In other words, for your system to work, people have to give because of the pure altruism of giving, not because they get a tax break back.
Well, I can tell you in my case, it's no motivation at all, because it doesn't help me one bit. I never seem to be able to come out ahead by itemizing deductions, so my charitable contributions don't help me at all.
Okay, all right, Mr. Fish here has a question. Mr. Fish, you can ask a question.
All right, I have one for each side. For the left, the gentleman on the left, in the middle of the left, about the taxation not being theft. Now, I'm challenging how deeply you've thought about that concept, and I want you to genuinely answer.
All my life.
So you should have a good answer and not be flippant about it. Is there any circumstance, I mean, at what point is the minimum barrier for when taxation does become theft?
So I don't have like an answer for like the strong exact barrier. My issue is, once again, we don't exist in the system where my tax money is redistribution right now isn't fair. It doesn't go to what is the most helpful. It doesn't go to what people would choose. But I think that's an issue of democratic ownership and control of capital means to create wealth.
I didn't mean to suggest you needed a specific, but even if there was a general principle where you would see taxation at some minimal level and say, now that's theft. Is there any part, or can we take it all? At what point would you even say, okay, now that's theft?
How about 100%? Suppose somebody takes all of your income.
Well, that is a possibility, but that might be the answer. But I'm genuinely asking, is there any point?
I guess if it like robs me of my ability to exist as a person, to not just to live, but maybe meet my potential, which, granted, that still happens sometimes. But if I am robbed of the means to live my most decent life and be the best Rav Diaz I can be, then yeah, like that's a real theft. But I don't know. It's a very specific question that I sort of have trouble answering, because for me, once again, the specifics come with democratic ownership and control of not just the government, but the wealth-making mechanisms within our society. I simply don't want the people who own everything to decide what is best, and I don't want the government to decide what is best either, unless it is actually a good representation of the people at large, including poor folks.
And for the right, libertarianism is based on the principle of freedom. I don't believe, and I don't think you would, that you can have freedom without democracy. And if you have democracy, you have people that are going to be adamantly opposed to libertarianism. So my question is libertarianism, while a principle that I personally love and support, is it even possible, given the fact that you can't silence the opposition without getting rid of democracy? Is it even possible?
You get extra points for hilarious gesture. That was hilarious. All right, go ahead, Mr. Gibson.
I want to make sure I understand the question. It sounds like he thinks libertarians are against opposition.
No. I'm going to clarify for him. Sit down.
Okay.
I know what he's saying. He's a seasoned debater. What he's saying is that what do you do about the fact that democracy allows for people that think that you should be able to vote in the types of safety nets that these people agree with, and that doesn't necessarily violate some substantial aspect of democracy?
You do your best you go to bars and have debates to convince them that their way is wrong so that they vote your way. I'm absolutely not against democracy and having people, this is America and everybody's entitled to the right to an opinion.
No. That's a cop-out. I'm going to call a cop-out for him. His point is that say that the people, like a majority of the people say, we like Social Security, we want to keep it going, right, because we like it, right? What can a libertarian say about that? Because they feel that the best means to the end of liberty is democracy. So if democratically people say, I'm voting for politicians that want Social Security, what do you do about that? Do you just say they're invalidated because they're doing something non-constitutional? How do you deal with that?
There is a republic, there is rule by law. Yeah, we do work that way. Certainly if Gary Johnson and Governor William Weld were allowed in the presidential debates, we could certainly have a national debate, but we are being closed out. So it's even hard to have a debate other than this type of forum, which I'm very thankful to be invited to. And I'll have an opportunity as a libertarian to speak against Smucker and Christine Hartman and debate the issues on the congressional level, because Lancaster County Chamber of Commerce is allowing it. But on the national level, we're not getting that type of we're being marginalized. So even the ideas, we're not even able to collectively talk about them as a group because our ideas are being pushed to the side as too radical.
So you're suggesting that there's something that is that something other than voting is democracy. In other words, your claim is that I mean people are free to vote for you if they'd like. Do you see what I'm saying? And the fact of the matter is, you're saying that democracy is more than just voting. Because everybody in this room is free to vote for you, you're claiming that you are unwarrantedly excluded from the debate.
Right, and I'm not going to be a dictator. I'm not being voted in to be a dictator. Just because 51% vote to do something that could be wrong that they're voting to do, you know, the law would prevent that from happening.
Fair enough.
Democracy, that word is thrown around too. We don't want a majority to be able to vote for something, anything, and then have that be true. Suppose the majority votes to execute the minority. You can't do that. We gotta have limits, like the Constitution placed on the government, that the forefathers carefully thought through, but unfortunately didn't put enough boilerplate around. You have to have limited government power.
Okay, do we have another question? I know John Duffy was there. Where did he go? John Duffy?
I've had too many of these, so I'm going to yield.
No. Do not yield the time to ask the question. Those are the best questions. Trust me, I've had too many of them too. Actually, no, this gentleman right here would like to ask a question. Who would you like to ask the question of?
Both parties, actually. This is a simple question. What form of government do we actually have?
What form of government do we actually have? Is that the question? On paper, we have a democratic republic, but I'd argue that we probably have the same answer. I think we have an oligarchy ruled by elites.
Yeah, you guys. And basically, the opposite of libertarianism is authoritarianism, and we are certainly in a police state. You know, so it's sad.
We found a rare point of agreement between the debaters here. We have an oligarchical police state, ladies and gentlemen. Just so you know, that's what we've agreed on here tonight. Any other questions? That's fantastic. Yes.
Libertarianism can be such a amorphous term. So between the extremes of like Black Bloc and Occupy, which are basically extreme democracies, which you warned against, and then going through Beck and Rand and Ron Paul and Lysander Spooner and Murray Rothbard at the other end of anarcho-capitalism, where would you guys define libertarianism, and what are the dangers you think of debating with people or discussing in public who don't understand the wide swath that libertarianism can describe?
All right, so where do you stand as far as libertarianism? That's something that we have not discussed. Good question.
I think we can each answer that maybe, because to me that's kind of a personal question. It's like asking somebody what's a Democrat or what's a Republican. I'm pretty new to libertarianism, to be honest. I don't know if you heard Matt say this. I considered myself a libertarian for about 4 years. Before that, I considered myself maybe a libertarian Republican. One of my favorite things to do on Facebook is argue with other libertarians, because we're always arguing about what we see as libertarianism. So I see myself as kind of a moderate libertarian, where some of the people I argue with would call themselves anarcho-capitalists. So I think it's a big party with a lot of room for debate. But I think I can let Roy and Sean give you some specifics, which we've talked about, that I definitely tend to agree with them on. So.
Do it.
I'm a fairly pure libertarian. I've always been libertarian before there was a Libertarian Party. And I ask you to think about the non-aggression principle. The whole idea is minimizing aggression in the world. Aggression on people. That's what we're about.
Do you think that, just to follow up on that, do you think aggression does not happen in the free market system? My question is, Well, no, I mean, I want to know, I guess my question, do you think that aggression happens within the free market system? Are we forced to do things because of
there are always going to be some people that will violate the non-aggression principle, and those are the people, robbery, murder, all that sort of stuff, assault, those are the people we got to have control over. The government rightfully can arrest those people, have laws to prevent that, prosecute them, incarcerate them, whatever. But I'm not sure what you're getting at.
I guess I'm saying is that it doesn't seem to me that government is the only aggressor in the system. Would you agree with that?
We are certainly against predators, whether it's predatory bankers, predatory
that's kind of what I mean.
anything of that nature. I've been involved with the Libertarian Party since 1992. My father was in the military, so I grew up in a very authoritarian family, very centralized, believe that centralization, things came from the top down. I listened to Nancy Lord in 1992, which was a female vice presidential candidate on Irv Homer's talk show when I worked in Philadelphia. And I was like, wow, I'm a libertarian. I want to persuade you. I don't want to force you. And don't tell me what to do, because if you tell me what to do, I'm going to say, F you. I'm going to do what I want to do because I'm an American. I'm independent. So, I'm not into aggression either. I'm not into war. I'm into peace. And I want choice and I want freedom. And that's what the libertarians offer. And if I don't like somebody, if I get bad food at Isaac's, I won't go to Isaac's, but I love Isaac's. You know, and those are the choices that we want. We don't want the government to say you only have Coke and Pepsi, because I want my water.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. Give them a round of applause. That's hard. We're going to take questions from the audience. I guess we have time for one more. Who's back there? Do we have someone?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's true. All right, here we go.
My question was for this team. One of the team members said that the Libertarian Party was making more people poor, but they didn't support their statement with evidence, and I just didn't get why or how they didn't support that Libertarian Party.
All right, go ahead, Travis. You want to take that one?
Thank you.
This is the hardest prosecution of your life.
I get the satisfaction of beating down a child with rhetoric.
Although you're awesome, and thank you for your contribution.
Basically, my argument, I think I was the one that actually made that statement. My argument would be, under the libertarian principles, there would be no protections for workers, there would be no public education, there would really be no incentive for parents to educate their children. Under that system, there would be nothing to prevent giant monopolies from developing, from there to be collusion among the great capitalist powers that provide the employment, and therefore there would be no real competition with respect to wages, with respect to working conditions, and especially with a less educated populace, it seems likely that there would be fewer people rising up, and rather the people at the top would simply accumulate all of the wealth.
And in general, accumulation of private capital means that you're going to have an inordinate amount of power throughout society.
All right, this absolutely has to be my last question. Yeah, here we go.
I believe I actually heard that under libertarian principles, parents wouldn't be motivated to educate their children. Did you really say that? That is you obviously are not a parent.
Yes, thereabouts.
What?
I said those words, yes, thereabouts.
Yeah, you realize that parents have a natural tendency to educate their children, and you realize that there was a social safety net before income tax of 1913. There were still public schools, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously you're not a parent yet. Are you motivated to educate your children?
Whoa, wait, real quick.
Whoa.
Real quick, I will say say this though, that this is something that I think we need to address because this is central to the debate. Their claim is that they're just these natural things that people will do. That they'll take care of their kids' education, they'll do all that kind of stuff. But the question that Chuck asked earlier was, historically, we don't necessarily see that. No, actually you don't, because before the I don't think, well, tell me about what earlier in human history people have supported public education or education of their kids. How so?
Whether they're farmers, they're teaching their children alongside of them, they're making sacrifices to send their children to higher education. Throughout European history, throughout Chinese history, parents have a natural tendency to see that their children are educated. Who do you think formed schools before there were public schools?
Well, okay. So I'm gonna take your question. I'm gonna ask the questions to each side, if you don't mind. That's a fun anecdote, but here's the deal. I want to ask each question something because I think that it does bear on this debate. The libertarian side has a view of human nature that's somewhat fixed, that people will take care of their own in a way that is important. Versus this side that says, if I may, that social institutions shape the way that people decide how to raise kids. No, well, because there are sometimes where there are people whose job it is, even now, to make sure that people get their kids into education. Don't you agree? There are people whose job it is. That's not the issue, though. That's not the issue. My question is this. The question that I think is important here is that you are operating under a principle of human nature where people are naturally motivated to pursue their best interest. That's the
to better themselves.
That's what your claim is. That they know that they know what is best for them and that they pursue it. That's your claim. Your claim is that institutions provide for the ability to figure out what is best for someone and then pursue it.
40 plus, especially if you're working 40 plus hours a week just to like feed your kids, you don't have the opportunity to give them an education. And your little house on the prairie education doesn't give you the same equivalent education as something a rich person like is able to give you. We can look at outcomes in terms of like education.
Parents who spend 5 hours every night doing homework with their kids after they work all day.
That's sick, but that's also sucks that you have this burden of working all the damn time and not being able to like get your kids a quality education. And I think that's a symptom of capitalism rather than.
Okay, yeah. Travis, you wanna?
I certainly don't mean to say that there's not a natural human inclination to provide the best future for your children. I understand that. But when we're talking about watching out for one's best interest and watching out for the best interest of one's children, if you're living in crippling poverty, there are no child labor laws anymore. You're working ridiculous numbers of hours because those are the only hours you can get and maintain employment. In order to keep a roof over your head and keep food on the table, you are able to have your children go to work at the same mill. Would you not take that opportunity?
Okay, so we have 2-minute closing statements. I don't know, I think that his response is relevant, don't you?
And once again, money and time gets you a better education. Everybody deserves a better education. If you're poor or if you're working all the time, your kids aren't going to get as good of an education. That sucks. Everyone deserves a decent education.
All right. Okay, we have to go to the closing statements now. Closing statements, starting with the pro side. You have 2 minutes to address the remaining sides. Starting.
Is that us?
Yes, you're the pro side. Starting. Who's doing closing statements? Mr. Manette, starting now.
I would just use a little bit of that time to point out that children are an interesting and complex situation. Children have rights as well.
and parents cannot abuse the rights of children. Obviously, children do not have adult rights, but they do have the right to proper care, feeding, education, and that sort of stuff. So if we're going to set up a government to protect people's rights, those are some of the rights that they protect. Most parents are going to do a good job. A few might not. There's where we need the protection. Now, in summary, let me just say that I want you to think about the non-aggression principle. The only time we can use force on somebody is if they initiated the use of force or fraud. If you depart very far from that, you're in trouble. So let's adhere to the non-aggression principle.
1 minute.
Freedom works.
1 minute.
Freedom works better than force, always.
I was going to say, the government's created a lot of this poverty. It used to be that one person could work and provide for a family, and it's not that way anymore. We're looking to change the system, and we're hoping that we can continue to debate the issue and work towards bringing people up all together.
30 seconds.
Yeah, just to add to that, the libertarians are very much opposed to, you talk about capitalism as if it's a really bad thing, but what libertarians are opposed to is crony capitalism. That is when the government creates all these things. When you talk about collusion and gangs, the biggest gang we have right now is the United States Congress. So, taxation is theft.
Okay. 2 minutes for closing arguments. Travis, you may begin.
Thank you very much. There's been a lot of points that have been made. I could take these 2 minutes, I could summarize all of them. I think instead I'm just going to make a simple point. I apologize if this is too irreverent an analogy for this august debate, but I hearken back to South Park, actually, and specifically the underpants gnomes. For those of you who don't watch South Park, there's underpants gnomes. They come in the night, they steal your underpants. When they're found and they're asked, why do you take underpants? They have a chart, and it's got 3 steps. Step 1, steal underpants. Step 2, a giant question mark. Step 3, profit. That's what we've got here. Let's set up a system, take away all the protection labeled. Next step, question mark. That taking everything away and setting up a system where everyone's out for themselves is going to lead to an adequate social safety net. So I would submit that the other side has not met their burden of proof in this case.
30 seconds.
Oh God. In addition to this, once again, we're talking about specifically coercion of individuals in the state. Me pushing Mary over here, but we're not talking about the coercion of a system. Once again, workers starve, a system which it's designed so a few people have most of the wealth and many don't. We're talking about how much we love freedom.
10 seconds.
The other side hated on democracy. I don't get that.
5 seconds.
Thanks.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the great debate is over. Give a round of applause for both sides, pro and con. Don't you agree that that was rational, factual debate with beer? I don't know how you could disagree. All right, everybody take about 5 minutes. The judges will get together and convene on who won this debate. And get yourself a beer, go to the bathroom, get a drink, hang out for a second, and we'll be right back.
Libertarian
She was gonna come, but she's just now starting to get a little very well. We've had such a good pregnancy, and just recently she started. Not terrible. She's a very good she's out now. Where? But yeah, no, she's coming up soon. Yeah, this was definitely much more smooth. He's going
so take your seats, grab people who have taken their seats, and if you're a debater, please come up on the stage.
You don't care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a decision from our judges. Here's the night. As you see, I have these fancy headphones on, which because on the roof there is a silent disco. You put these bad boys on your head, everybody dances like nobody's looking. It looks like you don't tell me what to do, big lady. You're not the congressman yet, sir. You don't tell me what to do. But it is beautiful. Everybody's dancing. It's like St. Vitus dance. You don't know what's going on. That's good. All right, so our judges agreed that neither side did a fantastic job of defining what an adequate social safety net looked like. Neither side did a good job of defining that. And that was pretty crucial to the debate, and I believe that that could have been clarified by saying something like on the order of, well, if you're disabled, you get X, if you lose your job, you get X, and so forth. We wanted specifics on that category, and we got generalities on that front. We felt that or I don't feel anything. I'm a robot. I'm a logic robot. I just tell you what the judges tell me. But the judges tell me that on some sense that the libertarian side was furthering a picture of human nature that they felt was not necessarily in line with what we know about human nature, or that was not justified particularly. We felt that both sides, okay, great. We felt that both sides veered off into irrelevancies at times that were crucial to making the point. And I think that's a very important aspect of things. The judges came out deciding that that up until the question and answer period, that this was a 50-50 debate, that it could have gone either way. They felt that during the question and answer period that there were some shaky answers from both sides, but that the pro side had some more shaky answers. So tonight, the debate went for, very closely, went for the anti-side, the anti-libertarian. But I will say this, it was a very, very, very close debate, and what I have to say as a host and moderator of this debate, that I thank all of these people for taking any of their time out. The people that are watching at home, the people in the audience, I just thank you so much, because I think that I care about this type of debate. I care that these people laid out their positions here tonight. And you know, earlier tonight, there was a friend of mine, he's still here. He came into this debate and he said, I don't have any opinion on this matter. Like, I'm coming into this completely cold. I have no opinion on this matter. And he said to me, I'm hoping I go home with a more fixed opinion than I did when I came in. To me, that tells me that there are people in this town that want to hear alternatives, no matter what they are, and that they come into these kind of debates with an open mind. They're not coming here to support their side or support the other side. They're coming here to hear people argue this. And that has nothing to do with where you decided things are going. This is just a panel of judges. And that at the end of the day, that maybe that person came out of this with a different opinion than they came in with. And I think that's all we can ask for a debate. We can't force anybody to accept the decision, because that's exactly what you were saying. We can't force anybody to accept your decision. What we can do is talk, and that's all we have. That's better than coercion. It's better than fighting or violence. We can talk. So thank you so much for coming out. Thank you everybody at home on the YouTube. It was a fantastic debate. I thought that was great in every way. Everybody go get another beer and get up onto the rooftop, because Aortic Valve is laying it down tonight. I'm listening to it right now. It is awesome. So thank you very much. Give a round of applause for our judges, for our debaters. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen, and get home safe.